Nestled in the quiet town of Westfield, Connecticut, a community of 15,000 residents enjoyed a life of tranquility that felt far removed from the chaos of nearby cities. Known for its picturesque streets, lined with vibrant autumn leaves, and a reputation for being one of the safest places in the state, Westfield seemed the ideal place for families to thrive. But on the morning of September 12, 2012, this suburban haven was rocked by an event so horrifying that it would haunt the town forever. What could transform a peaceful home into the setting of an unspeakable tragedy? Could jealousy or betrayal drive someone to commit such a brutal act? These were the questions that would grip the nation as details of this shocking crime emerged. In a modest yet well-kept condominium, neighbors were jolted awake by screams so harrowing they immediately dialed 911. When police arrived and broke down the locked door, they found a scene straight out of a nightmare. Aspen Walker, a 34-year-old marketing executive, lay lifeless on her kitchen floor, her body riddled with bullets. She had been shot 7 times, including 2 deliberate shots to her pregnant stomach. Her hands bore wounds suggesting she had tried to shield her unborn child, a desperate act of maternal instinct that tragically proved futile. The apartment showed no signs of forced entry or struggle. Jewelry, electronics, and valuables remained untouched, ruling out robbery as a motive. She had not been sexually assaulted, leaving investigators to conclude that the attack was deeply personal, targeting not just Aspen but her unborn child. The calculated brutality, especially the shots aimed at her stomach, pointed to a chilling motive that investigators could scarcely comprehend. Aspen's life seemed perfect to outsiders. Friends described her as radiant and kind, eagerly awaiting the birth of her first child. She had recently moved to Westfield with her husband, Ben Walker, a former professional football player who transitioned to a successful career in real estate after retiring from the sport. Though they had been together for over a decade, his reluctance to settle down had always been a point of contention. Although he claimed he was preparing for a work meeting that morning, his presence near their apartment at the time of her death would later raise significant questions during the investigation. As detectives began to unravel Aspen's seemingly idyllic life, they would uncover secrets that hinted at the storm brewing beneath her calm exterior. Who would want to harm Aspen and her unborn baby so deliberately, and why? These questions would lead investigators down a path of startling revelations, shaking the small town to its core. Shortly after dawn on September 12, 2012, Westfield detectives began piecing together the puzzle of the murder. Witnesses in her condominium complex described unsettling activity around 7 a.m. One resident, an older woman who preferred to keep her blinds open for security, reported seeing a slender teenage boy wearing a dark hoodie climbing the stairs to Aspen's floor. Minutes later, another neighbor noticed the same figure fleeing down the steps, his movements frantic as he disappeared into a compact black sedan parked hastily outside. Surveillance footage recovered from a nearby camera revealed a black Toyota Corolla arriving at 7:03 a.m. and leaving less than an hour later. Although the vehicle's license plate was obscured, its movements aligned perfectly with the suspected timeline of Aspen's brutal murder. Investigators had a lead, albeit a thin one. Inside her purse, police uncovered a cryptic, unsigned letter that sent shivers through the room. The note referenced Ben Walker, Aspen's partner of nearly 12 years and the father of her unborn child. The letter accused Ben of leading a double life, naming multiple women across the country with whom he allegedly had affairs. One line stood out: "He will never commit, Aspen, not to you, and certainly not to that baby." Detectives quickly summoned him for questioning. His polished demeanor and reputation as a charismatic socialite left detectives suspicious but cautious. Ben arrived at the station visibly distraught, claiming through tears that he had been deeply in love with Aspen and was eagerly anticipating the arrival of their daughter, Sophia. Yet, cracks in his narrative soon emerged. Friends disclosed that Ben often referred to Aspen's pregnancy as unexpected and mentioned doubts about fatherhood. They also hinted at tension between Aspen and Ben over her desire to settle down and his reluctance to commit fully. Meanwhile, the teenager seen at the scene became a prime suspect. With a vague description in hand, authorities issued a citywide search for the young man and the Toyota Corolla. Aspen's family, devastated by the loss, demanded justice. their grief turning into anger as rumors swirled about Ben's fidelity and potential involvement. While detectives worked to identify the boy in the hoodie, they also dug deeper into Aspen's social circle. Whispers of strained friendships, hidden rivalries, and simmering jealousy began painting a more complex picture of the life Aspen left behind. As detectives dug deeper into Ben's tangled personal life, it became clear that Aspen Walker was just one part of a much more complicated puzzle. While he admitted to having multiple affairs, he portrayed himself as a man torn between his flaws and his genuine love for Aspen. "She knew who I was," he confessed during interrogation, "but I wanted to change for her, for our baby." Despite his polished alibi, confirmed by a receptionist at a barbershop, investigators remained skeptical. Ben's haircut appointment at 9:30 a.m. placed him only a 10-minute walk from Aspen's apartment at the time of her murder. While his athletic build didn't match the description of the slender teenager seen fleeing the scene, detectives couldn't discount the possibility that Ben may have hired someone to carry out the crime. When pressed about potential suspects, Ben provided a surprising lead: Adriana Novak, a yoga instructor he had met during a retreat in Bali 2 years prior. Their whirlwind romance had lasted several months, during which Adriana became deeply infatuated with him. According to Ben, their relationship ended when he returned to the U.S., but she refused to let go. "She followed me here," Ben said, his voice low with discomfort. "She started showing up at my office, leaving notes on my car, even calling Aspen pretending to be a friend. One night, she escalated her behavior. She appeared outside Ben's luxury condo in Hartford, Connecticut, pounding on doors and screaming his name. Witnesses later recalled hearing glass shatter. When Ben opened his front door, he found Adriana standing barefoot, her hand bleeding from a broken window pane. She looked wild, he told police. I was terrified of what she might do. After that incident, Ben filed for a restraining order against Adriana, which was granted. Detectives noted a chilling connection. Adriana had previously made comments about Aspen in her messages to Ben. One text read, "She's the only thing standing in the way of our future." Another, sent just weeks before Aspen's murder, declared ominously, "You'll be free soon, I promise." Police worked quickly to locate Adriana, now their prime suspect. Her last known address was a short-term rental in Hartford, just 20 minutes from Westfield. However, when officers arrived, the property was vacant, and Adriana had seemingly vanished without a trace. They found only a small suitcase left behind, inside of which were troubling items: a wig, dark clothing, and a half-empty box of 9mm ammunition. As detectives expanded their investigation, a new name surfaced: Amara Delgado, a woman whose obsession with Ben rivaled even the most intense of his affairs. Amara, a 41-year-old divorced mother of two, had met Ben at a networking event in Boston nearly 6 years earlier. At the time, she was juggling her work as a freelance photographer with a part-time job as an administrative assistant to support her family. What began as a professional connection quickly turned into something far more personal. Ben, with his charm and casual confidence, struck up a whirlwind romance with Amara. For her, it was the beginning of something life-changing. For him, it was another fleeting affair. But Amara didn't see it that way. Friends later described her as being utterly consumed by Ben, frequently referring to him as the man of her dreams, and even claiming they had plans for a future together, statements Ben would vehemently deny. Her behavior grew increasingly erratic. Text messages recovered from her phone revealed a pattern of obsessive communication with Ben. One message, sent just 2 days before the crime, read, "I won't let anyone take you from me. Not her, not anyone." Another, more ominous, stated, "If you don't love me, I'll make sure she never gets to have you either." On the night before Aspen's murder, Amara and Ben had spent several hours together at a hotel in Hartford. Security footage confirmed Ben's presence at the hotel, but Amara's movements afterward raised questions. She left alone shortly after 1:30 a.m., and her car was spotted by traffic cameras heading toward Westfield. She arrived home at approximately 3 a.m., according to her neighbor's statement, but couldn't provide an alibi for her whereabouts during the time of the murder later that morning. When detectives confronted Amara, she appeared calm yet evasive. "I was home with my kids," she insisted, but her timeline didn't add up. Her older son, a 14-year-old, later told investigators that his mother had left the house for a bit early that morning, claiming she needed to pick up groceries. During a search of her home, detectives found items that deepened their suspicions. In a locked drawer of her desk, they discovered a stash of photographs, candid shots of Ben and Aspen together, many of them taken without their knowledge. One image, taken from a distance, showed Aspen standing outside her apartment just a week before her death. Beneath the photos was a handwritten note that read, "She doesn't deserve him. I do." They felt the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. She fit the description of the slim figure in a hoodie, seen fleeing the scene, and her behavior was becoming increasingly damning. Besides the photos found, officers combed through her apartment, uncovering a trove of evidence that connected her to the murder. On her computer, investigators found she had hacked into Ben Walker's email account, monitoring his every move for months. Among her belongings was a damaged external hard drive, which forensic experts managed to partially recover. It revealed a disturbing spreadsheet, a detailed list of Ben's past lovers, complete with addresses, personal notes, and photos. One folder was specifically labeled Obstacles, with Aspen's name highlighted in red. Postal receipts discovered in Amara's drawer linked her to anonymous letters sent to Aspen and Ben's mother. By mimicking the writing style of another of Ben's exes, Adriana Novak, Amara had created an elaborate ruse to misdirect suspicion. The letters were littered with grammatical mistakes, lending credence to the illusion of a non-native English speaker. A turning point in the investigation came when detectives interviewed Amara's 21-year-old daughter, Laura, who reluctantly shared her concerns. She wasn't the same mom anymore, she explained, her voice trembling. She was obsessed with him, like everything she did was about Ben. She also revealed her mother had recently purchased black clothing and gloves, though she claimed it was for a photography project. The most explosive testimony came from Clara Hughes, a former confidant of Amara's. Clara recounted how Amara had vented to her about Ben's infidelity and Aspen's pregnancy. "She told me, if she has his baby, there's no room for me," Clara revealed. Detectives pressed further, and Clara admitted Amara had confessed to visiting Aspen's apartment with a gun. "She said she couldn't go through with it," Clara added, "but she kept talking about how Aspen didn't deserve him." Her cooperation didn't end there. Weeks before the murder, Amara had met Clara at a quiet cafe where she made a chilling request to confirm whether her plan would succeed. Amara wasn't asking for advice. She wanted validation. "She asked if I thought it was fate for her to be with Ben," Clara said, her voice shaking. Clara later wore a hidden microphone to record a meeting with Amara. The recording captured Amara describing the murder in vivid detail, how she disguised herself with dark makeup and gloves, how she forced her way into Aspen's apartment, and how she felt unstoppable once the gun was drawn. Her chilling confession left detectives and prosecutors with irrefutable evidence of her guilt. "She didn't even have time to scream," Amara had said, her voice cold. "I wore gloves, no prints. I left nothing behind." She described the darkness of the apartment and the rush of adrenaline that clouded her ability to confirm whether she had hit her target. "I didn't know for sure until I saw the blood." She had meticulously planned every detail. She rented a black Toyota Camry 2 days before the murder, purchased a disposable phone, and disposed of all incriminating items, including the weapon, wig, gloves, and clothing in various dumpsters across Westfield. Police found traces of her internet search history, including detailed maps of Aspen's neighborhood, and discovered a saved route on her GPS leading directly from her office to Aspen's home. During the trial, Amara's defense team argued fiercely against the prosecution's case. "There is no physical evidence linking my client to the crime scene," her lawyer insisted. "No fingerprints, no DNA, only an unsubstantiated confession obtained under dubious circumstances." They questioned the credibility of Clara, painting her as an unreliable witness with a history of fabricating stories. The defense seized on Clara's past, including her claim of surviving a traumatic mission during her time as a military contractor, a story later debunked. They argued that she might have manipulated Amara into confessing, taking advantage of her fragile emotional state. Amara's lawyer suggested that the confession was an act of desperation to protect her eldest son, Derek, who had briefly been considered a suspect. According to the defense, the confession was a sacrifice to shield her family. The case became even murkier with the discovery of an unidentified fingerprint on Aspen's doorknob. Police admitted the print didn't match Amara, Aspen, or anyone else connected to the case. Moreover, male DNA was found on shell casings at the scene, which also failed to match Amara or her son. The prosecution countered by emphasizing the overwhelming circumstantial evidence. The rented Camry matched the car seen on surveillance footage near Aspen's apartment. Receipts for the rental, paired with Amara's own GPS history, placed her in the vicinity of the crime. The audio recording of her confession sealed the jury's decision. Despite the defense's attempts to sow doubt, Amara Delgado was found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree premeditated murder for the deaths of Aspen Walker and her unborn child. The sentence, 2 life terms without the possibility of parole. Even after sentencing, Amara maintained her innocence, claiming her confession was fabricated to divert attention from her family. Her defense team filed multiple appeals, focusing on the male DNA and unidentified fingerprint, but all were rejected. The murder weapon was never recovered, and the shadow of the unknown assailant's DNA remained a lingering mystery, leaving a fragment of doubt in an otherwise tightly woven case. As the trial faded into memory, questions surrounding Ben Walker's involvement resurfaced, reigniting public fascination with the case. Defense attorneys seized on newly surfaced footage from a surveillance camera outside a coffee shop near Aspen's. The video, time-stamped 8:30 a.m., showed Ben's distinctive silver watch glinting as he stepped out of a car, directly contradicting his earlier alibi. Ben had initially claimed he awoke at 9:15 a.m. before heading to his barbershop at 10 a.m., where he heard of her death. However, phone records painted a different picture. Between 8:40 a.m. and 9 a.m., he sent several text messages to Aspen, including one reading, "We need to talk." The same records revealed 2 unanswered calls to her phone during that time. The defense argued these discrepancies could suggest Ben had more than enough time to commit the crime before arriving at the barbershop. Despite Amara's conviction, her legal team filed for a retrial, citing this new evidence and the inconsistencies in Ben's timeline. Meanwhile, he had relocated to Edinburgh, Scotland, distancing himself from the scandal. Working as a sports consultant, he appeared regularly on Scottish television, offering insights into international athletic competitions. Ben refused to comment publicly on the case, though he maintained his innocence in private statements through his attorneys. Back in the U.S., investigators revisited the forensic evidence. Male DNA found on the shell casings and an unidentified fingerprint on Aspen's doorknob remained unaccounted for. Analysts speculated whether an accomplice might have been involved. His legal team dismissed these findings, arguing that the foreign DNA could belong to anyone and didn't implicate him directly. Amara, now 3 years into her life sentence, continued to profess her innocence. During an interview with a journalist, she stated, "I took the blame to protect my son. I thought that's what a mother should do, but I didn't kill her." The journalist noted Amara's demeanor, calm yet resolute, as she described the pressures she felt during the investigation. She also hinted at feeling manipulated by police into confessing. Despite her claims, recordings of her detailing the murder remained the prosecution's strongest evidence. Public opinion remained divided. Some believed she had acted alone, driven by jealousy and obsession, while others pointed to Ben's influence and possible involvement. The case, with its unanswered questions, became a cautionary tale about the destructive power of unchecked emotions and manipulation. In Aspen's hometown of Fairfield, Vermont, a small memorial garden was established in her honor, featuring a plaque inscribed, "In memory of Aspen and Sophia, may their light guide us to kindness and understanding." While the garden served as a symbol of peace, the unresolved threads of the case continued to haunt those connected to it, ensuring the story of Aspen's tragic death remained etched in the public consciousness.